Welcome to the Real Estate Secrets podcast for healthcare professionals, hosted by Austin Hare and Nathan Palmer, who together have over 2 decades of real estate knowledge and investing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Commercial Real Estate Secrets. If you have not already liked or subscribed, we ask that you do that just because it helps us beat the algorithm. So I want to welcome our guest today, David Phelps. He is the CEO and founder of Freedom Founders. And he has been in the dentistry game for a long time, and they've been crushing it and making waves. And so it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Austin, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so let's give our audience a little bit of a backstory. How did you decide that you wanted to get involved in dentistry? When did you make the career move and the decision for yourself?
Yeah, I think I was going to go into medicine first because my father was an eye surgeon. So he was kind of my role model. And I guess I was fortunate enough to be able to get through school and learn and memorize stuff and regurgitate it back, which is how you get through school these days, right? It's not about thinking, it's just about spitting it out. So I could do those things pretty well. And so I thought, well, it's just normal. You go into something that's professional or engineering law. My dad was a doctor, so I'm going to be able to do that. But as I was growing up, I was one of the many kids that had to have braces because I had a malocclusion. So it was my orthodontist who I really came to appreciate when I was going through that. Was probably junior high into early high school. And he was a great guy, community leader, someone I really felt a lot of respect for. I didn't feel like there was any diminution between a dentist and a doctor. And I thought, lifestyle. This guy comes to work, at 8:30 in the morning, and at the end of the day, he's gone. There's no emergency calls. There's none of that stuff. My dad, unfortunately, hard worker, but he'd get called out in the middle of the night to go take care of, emergencies at the hospital. And my sisters and I would wake up in the morning to get ready for school, and Dad's already gone. Dad's good. It's just part of his work ethic. So that was my decision to deviate from medicine into dentistry. And it's a path I never have had any regrets about.
Okay, so you did that while you were in college. When was that exact time that you kind of had that switch?
Yeah, I think early in college. I might have still been making the decision while I was in my first couple of years, going through the sciences. But I think certainly by second year, I was pretty much, I'm gonna go the dental route. By then too, I was also meeting, other students, right, that were at my college. We're all kind of, it's pre-med, pre-dent, it's all the same. But, I found a tribe that were also doing dentistry, and I think I just, aggregated there. I'd already kind of made up my mind, and it just felt good. So, yeah, didn't look back from there.
Okay. And so what was your first job when you graduated? Who did you work for originally?
Yeah, I was an associate. I went to an associateship with another doctor who was probably 10 years my senior.
Was that local?
Yeah. I stayed within, say, 50 miles of where I graduated from Baylor in Dallas. So I stayed within 50 miles, and yeah, it was associateship. I didn't really know where I wanted to land. I didn't have enough business sense or clinical skills to really open up. And that was, I date myself, but that was 37 years ago when there was a lot more opportunity for young dentists, graduates to come out of school and actually go start up a practice. I mean, you could actually, we didn't have the debt, we didn't have the debt that we have today. So there was more opportunities, but I knew what I didn't know, and I needed to get some runway. So yeah, I worked as an associate for a few years before I opened a practice.
All right. So when you opened up a new practice, you weren't buying it from somebody else. You started it from scratch?
Started from scratch. Yeah. And to the real estate side, which is, what you do so well. I started in real estate before I became a dentist. So I actually was developing some chops in real estate as an investor,
Nice.
Buying properties. I actually bought one with my dad while I was in dental school. And then I just turned that capital gain into more properties, just leveraged like crazy because I didn't have any money. Residential, just staying residential early on. But along the lines, while I was doing that, of course, I was meeting other people in the community. So I had to find the attorney, banking relationship, title companies, realtors. So as you start to expand, networks everything. And so one day I had somebody from the title company call me or notified me that, hey, there might be this opportunity for this building that might be available. And it was back during the day. Some people you're probably not of the age, remember, but there was back in the late 80s that we had the S&L crisis. There was the government agency was called the Resolution Trust RTC, Resolution Trust Corporation. So they were taking all the assets from the defaulted savings and loans. And one of the assets was a local commercial property, 6,000 square foot strip building on a great street in the town. And he said, hey, you know what? You can pick this up for a song. And so I did. So that was my first entry to commercial, but it was for a purpose, to house my soon to be dental practice. And it was a gangbuster decision, and I didn't know that much about commercial, but I mean, I didn't have to know a lot more to know this was a great deal. And even if I didn't put my practice in it, I was going to make money on it just by, holding it as an investment property.
So was that a good location? Like where was it situated? Were you looking at the time more for something for your practice, or are you looking something more for an investment?
Really, I was looking for practice. So it was designed for the practice. It could have worked either way. I mean, actually, I was an owner occupant, but I had, obviously other tenants because it was a multi-tenanted property. And so the other tenants paid the mortgage on it. So, really I was like, you know how it works. I mean, it's just, I'm a big fan. I tell people that, real estate is, in my opinion, the best asset class outside of one's own business to create wealth. And a lot of people ask me, as I'm sure they do you, I'm a dentist, I'm a profession. Do I need to own my office real estate? And I say, no, you don't have to. I mean, it all depends, right? Because there's situations where it makes more sense to lease, but you can still build wealth through other real estate. So you don't have to own your building. And I think you just have to work with people like you to make a decision, what's the best way to go, and know what your options are before you jump in.
Yeah, that's exactly what we say. The answer is that it depends. And kind of like to break it down even a little bit further, what we tell people is, what are your goals? Because every business is constrained by the amount of capital that it has. Yes. And that it has access to. And so if you're trying to grow your practice, or maybe you want multiple locations, and you use this capital to buy real estate, that's going to really inhibit you from growing multiple locations. And so you're going to typically get a better return on your business, right? Like 30, 40, 50% a lot of times than you will on the real estate. Real estate's still good, but it's a little bit more of a long-term. Sometimes, and then the other thing too is that, we see people out there looking for the best deals to buy and not have rent, not, like not, throwing away their money in rent, quote unquote. But then that leads to getting a location that isn't really perfect, and so the money that you save in rent, like you still have to pay a mortgage. It still has a lot of things like interest and taxes and insurance and all that kind of stuff that isn't going towards your principal. So you're still throwing some of that away. But now you're not getting the return in terms of the customers, right? Like you're not getting drive-by visibility, you're not getting the traffic. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things to think about more so than just throwing away your money at rent. And so it definitely depends. And then another strategy that we like to do too is you could buy the building, right? Sign the lease, which means you're increasing the value of that building by being a tenant that has decent credit as a dentist. And then you could resell that building and recapitalize your money, right? So yeah, you do still have to pay your lease. You still have a payment going forward, but you can create a significant amount of wealth and value because you've taken a building that was empty. You put yourself in there as a tenant, that increases the value. You sign a lease, and then now you've essentially done arbitrage, and you can continue to use that money to grow your business as you see fit. So those are a couple of things that we coach. So, with the building that you bought, how long were you there for? Did you end up being happy with that location?
It was a great location. It was on a corner on Main Street. Had a lot of traffic, a lot of visibility. So I stayed there until I sold the practice. Didn't change locations, and so I was there for a good 15 years. Sold the practice. The buyer of the practice wasn't capable at the time to buy both the practice and the building, which was fine with me. So I just held it, and he just leased. 5 years later, I gave him a first right of refusal. Timing was right. I never fall in love with investment real estate, and it was good for him because he needed the same opportunity to own the real estate. And he's 10 years later, he loves both. He's got a great practice. He's got the location still, and he's building additional equity, by owning the building. So that's what I love about real estate is there's so many ways to carve up the benefits. And so many people, as you know, Austin, just see it from one way. It's their experience from maybe their own experience, or they've just heard one thing. It's like, you just open up the whole door, opening to so many ways to look at it. And you got to be strategic because you don't have to own the real estate to make it work for you. You can control it. So that's why I love it. There's not just one way to do it. If you're creative, or you put yourself in a place where you've got advisors or other wisdom that can show you how to take the assets you have, your dental license, your dental practice or potential practice, and the real estate that you're going to own or use, and you start moving those pieces around, that's how you strategically build the runway, as you said, so you don't get locked up with too much capital tied up in the wrong thing, right? Because you want to focus on the business aspect, because that's where, as you said, the real return is going to come from. And real estate's a nice side benefit. Fit it into your program and don't make it the end all.
Yeah, I agree. And so you said you were there for 15 years before you sold it. What'd you do after that?
Well, I sold the practice because my daughter was really, really ill. She'd had a lot of medical problems early in her life. She had childhood leukemia, survived that. She had epilepsy for about 4 years, and then she had a end-stage liver failure and liver transplant. And so that was really a turning point for me in my life, where things, I mean, practice in real estate, good. But the big check mark I couldn't check off was my time freedom. I mean, I was dialed into doing all this stuff, right, for the betterment of my family, for security, but it was taking me away from where I really need to be, was with my family. So I made a tough decision, but in retrospect, a great decision to sell the practice, and that gave me time. And I didn't have really a next, but organically, what happened was I had a number of friends, colleagues in dentistry and in medicine who knew me and heard through the grapevine, or maybe through a Christmas letter we sent out, telling them about my daughter's situation, that she got through all this, but also the revelation that I sold my practice. And I had people come back and say, well, how did you do that? You're still kind of a young guy. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Don't you still have, and I said, well, I let them know that I've been building up real estate. So what happened was I had a number that said, well, could you show me how to do it? And I said, well, I could teach you what I do, but I said, you're better off if you just piggyback on some of my deals. And so that became a way for them to participate as a lender with some equity and some ideals. And that's how I started the private capital part of my real estate business, because I'm free of dentistry at that point. So I have a network, I know how to find deal flow. And that just turned into a situation where more and more people were coming and saying, could you help me? Well, I didn't want to build a real estate boots on the ground business, acquisition development. It was not my game plan, because I wanted time. So I leveraged my network, people who I knew in real estate, who had the boots on the ground opportunities, and I knew who they were. I knew they had track records. They had, integrity, the kind of people that I would entrust their deal flow with my friends and colleagues. And that's how Freedom Founders came together. But it didn't happen overnight. It was a process that evolved very organically over time. And that's what I do today. It's what I love to do.
That's great. It's great, to hear when it's born out of necessity or out of need, right? Like, you didn't have to market it. You didn't have to force people to do it. They came to you, which is a sign that you were filling a void in the marketplace.
Exactly.
So, okay, so you said you were in the practice for 15 years, you sold it, then you started essentially doing this full time. So, I mean, how long ago was it that you founded Freedom Founders?
You actually founded it 10 years ago in 2010.
Okay. And so you were doing this for several years before you decided to kind of make it official?
Yeah, I probably was doing it 3 or 4 years, just off the cuff, if you will, without any structure to it, just with a handful of people that were, and I was having fun doing that because we were entering the downturn in 2008, and I knew on the other side there's going to be all kinds of deals, which there were, and so having private capital would kind of juice the opportunity, and we all participated and made a lot of money on the upside. In the next 5 or 6 years, it was good. It was fun. We just made a ball doing it.
I bet. Yeah. 2010 was a great time to get started. My first real estate purchase was 2011, like April, which is really just lucky. I mean, I just happened to be looking for a house at the time that it was really low. I couldn't have told you that it was going to be the bottom, but that worked out extremely well. So it sounds like it worked out well for you guys. And then it started getting obviously a little bit more hard, come 2015. So did you have to pivot during that period? Like, what were you focused on at the beginning? And like, how did that change? How did that evolve over time?
Well, we started with what I consider the safest real estate asset, and that's single family. Either equity ownership means, you have a rental property, in this case, managed by somebody else who's been vetted, or you can be you can lend the money and own debt as an asset. And I like that piece too. So, the equity or debt piece is what we talk a lot about, and how you shift your portfolio allocations from equity to debt, or vice versa, depending on where you are in the market cycle. But we started with single family because it's easy, it's very forgiving. But as we had more capital coming to Freedom Founders with higher needs, then we had to open up some doors to commercial through syndicators and fund managers. So we've broadened our base a lot. Single family is still a focus point. It's very strong today, as you know, but also for people who don't want to have a lot of direct ownership pieces, which does still require some management of the managers. And when you're talking about people that were bringing in $3, $4, $5 million of capital, they don't want to buy 100 houses, right? They might buy 10. The rest they want to put in some other more passive, syndications or funds where they can still reap the same benefits from real estate, but not have to be involved in the actual ownership pieces of it.
Yeah. I have a podcast about that. It talks about 3 options for your money, and essentially it's very basic, right? It doesn't, you could slice it infinitely more complicated if you want to, but it's like hold it in cash where you're going to experience inflation and therefore devaluation of your money.
Right.
Stock market, which I do like, or in real estate. And then so in real estate, you can really kind of subdivide that into 3 parts. You can just subdivide it into more if you want to, but residential, commercial, and then REITs, real estate investment trusts. And it's like with the residential real estate, it's great from an ROI perspective, but each house, each property doesn't scale to those terms, right? And so it's like you might be getting a good ROI, but it's hard. Like you're not really going to be making a lot of money per house because a $100,000 house that rents for $1,000 a month, you're not going to see $1 million house renting for $10,000 a month. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to scale the same way. But commercial, as it grows, it's all about the cap rate. It's all about the cash flow, anyways. And so you can scale almost infinitely. And so, it's not that one's good or one's bad. They're just different, and it depends on what cycle you're at. And a lot of people start with residential, a single family, and I think it makes sense. And then you kind of grow and add to your portfolio as you go from there. So did you guys, sounded like you started with residential with your fund and single family, and then you were kind of forced out of necessity to move to other things? Is that what was happening?
Yeah, forced because of the amount of capital that wanted to be deployed, and then certainly also just wanting more diversification, and growing the network, our network of people that I allowed the organization to bring the deal flow. The connections increased, just broadened out, and real estate's all about who you know. I mean, it's an inefficient marketplace, right? I mean, there's big players, but you can decide where you want to play, where you want to invest, what level. I mean, you can be big if you want to be big, but then you better be willing to play big with the big players, right? And the cap rates are going to be compressed down. For most of us in our group, we don't want to play big. We want to take advantage of the inefficiencies in the marketplace, where the big money is not going to go because it's not efficient for them, but certainly efficient for our money to play in those areas where you've got people that are ferreting out different access points to the opportunities in asset classes and geographically where the opportunities are. So, I mean, that's the fun of real estate, is that you can decide where you want to be, and you can niche it as much as you want to niche it, or you can broaden it where you want to broaden it. But there's so much opportunity there, and that's what, to me, makes it so much fun.
So what kind of returns were you guys getting when you first started back 2010, 2015?
Well, we were doing both equities and in the residential properties, and also lending. So returns. The cap rate returns on residential real estate today. If you can hit a 7 to 8% well managed, good product, I think that's good. You add leverage to it, and you're probably going to double that number with leverage. On the lending side, it's interesting because we have yield compression over the last 4 or 5 years, but in the early part of this past decade, 2010 up to about 2015, we were lending money at 12 and 3 points, sometimes up to 18% total returns. Killer, because there's so much margin, so much profit, so much turning. Now as the price points have moved up, over the last 3 or 4 years, the margins get squeezed. So we're still getting 10 and 2 on our lending deals. So if you like debt, you can get really good returns. It's very safe in the capital stack. And if you want to play the equity hedge against inflation and take advantage of leverage, the equities are still there. And I think the biggest value today on cash flowing real estate, whether it's residential or commercial, and you feel like it's in a good economic area, well managed, with essential need for the tenants that occupy it, the interest rates that we're able to capture today, like nothing we've ever had before. In centuries, we haven't had interest rates here. So people always say, well, David, don't I need to be buying real estate or investing in real estate where I'm getting a discount to the market? I go, well, not in the market right now. I said, your discount is by acquiring those long-term holds with cash flow at these interest rates that you'll never see again. I mean, that's where your discount is. If you're a flipper, which is the business of, now that's a different game. But I said, you're an investor. You're in this for the long haul. So don't worry about thinking you need to get a 20% discount to the market. I mean, if you pick up one of those here and there, but those aren't likely today. Now, we go through a reset again. Yeah. Come back in stock we did coming out of the last recession. Yeah, you're going to pick up some big discounts, but then there may not be the credit available. So the market's always shifting, right? And you can't just try to make it all work in one model. You've got to be able to move with the market, understand where the opportunities in every cycle. That's what the fun part as an investor, I think.
Do you guys do hard money lenders, or so are you guys ever lending money to people who are flipping the houses?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a major, player for us, because obviously they need quick capital, they need fast capital. That's not going to hold them down because they're making deals that they got to close quickly. So hard money is a big piece of what we do. But we also do some longer term lending, because some of our sponsors, if you will, the managers that have the boots on ground platforms, they're also wisely building their own portfolio of many times residential property where they want to hold it. I mean, they'll cherry pick the ones they want to hold. And what they tend to do is they want to aggregate a certain amount of properties, and then they go to a refi lender, maybe a couple of years out when they have aggregated enough where they take us out. So we may lend 2 or 3 years with a equity participation, have their interest carry be where they can cash flow the properties, no problem, but take a bite of the back end. It still works for them because they're aggregating a larger portfolio. Now they refi out to 30-year long-term low interest rates. So we do both on that end.
Okay. So that would be similar to the Burr method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat.
Sure.
on Bigger Pockets. Is that kind of what that is?
That's what they're doing. We participate by being the lenders in that movement. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're giving them the money until they refinance.
Correct.
And then what kind of loan to values are you looking for? Like, how much margin do you like to have in those?
Well, it's a lot of it depends on who the operator is. So there's going to be a range, but I would say probably somewhere around 70-75%. But I've gone higher than that with people that I know. I mean, I've actually gone and funded the whole thing with certain people, but I know them well. So it's a matter of trust and track record.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody you don't know and you're just getting started, yeah, you want to keep that loan to value probably 70, 75, maybe 80 tops, just to be prudent about it.
So if you're a dentist or you're an investor looking to invest with you, like, do you get to choose where your money goes, or is it all just put in the one big fund and then you're allocating it between lending, between buying houses? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, great question. It comes up often. Yeah, we don't have a fund for Freedom Founders. We don't touch anybody's money. We don't take a profit or a spread on anybody's money. We could. It's certainly legal to do it. But I made a decision years ago as we were growing that I want to be totally unbiased to that. So no, we don't pool everybody's money in a fund. Now we have operators and sponsors who have funds and syndications where there's pooling of money, but we Freedom Founders, we don't touch that. I participate in those with my own money. I mean, it's the same way as our members. So they actually get to choose through the education and the frameworks we provide, and based on their goals and their risk tolerance and how much growth they want and what their end game is, we help them kind of design their portfolio, but we provide the speed to implementation, so they don't have to go find the opportunities, because that takes a lot of time, right? I mean, that's what you do for your clients. I mean, their business is being at the chair until they retire, and so when they want real estate to use as the housing of their practice, I mean, they go to you and say, hey, help us, find, negotiate, because they don't have the time to figure it all out. Time is everything, right? And we have to focus on where our time is best used.
They're relying on you to vet the users, the referrals in the industry, and then you just have a certain group of people that you recommend. Okay. And is it so like are they paying an entry fee to get in the Freedom Fund? Like, how do you put food on your table?
It's by membership. It's by membership. Okay. So that's how we cover our overhead and all that we do. They pay a flat membership fee. And we have criteria that we set when we're doing the vetting of potential members, because I want every member to be successful. It does no good at all to wrangle somebody in or strong arm somebody in with a bunch of promises if it doesn't work for them. So I'm very, very careful about making sure that's the right time, right place for somebody. And we push people back, kindly, and say, here's what you need to get done. Here's where you need to be. And many times it's about getting the practice optimized, because I don't want to pull somebody away from where they need to be focusing, and that's the practice. When they've got the practice optimized, when they're throwing off enough capital to invest it elsewhere, all right, now's a good time to be looking outside.
Okay. And for someone who's interested, who's kind of wondering like what kind of returns can they get or they expect? I mean, do you have a range that you say that you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, I can talk about it because I'm not the one who's actually taking their money for the investment part, right? So drop dead, conservative, passive all day long, no debt, very low risk. 8%, and then you can get all the way up with leverage opportunities up into the high teens and low 20s. I tell people for my own personal money, if I get an overall target return of 12 to 13, 14% with my money, I'm happy all day long.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And is that compounding or is it paid out every month to you? Or whatever, every quarter.
Some of both. There's some that are growth funds. There's some that are hybrids, income and growth. And there are some of the funds where you can compound your money and leave it to reinvest if you don't need the cash flow. So lots of options to build your plan that works for you. When you're still with active income, you may not need the distributions, so you let it compound. Once you're retired out, you want the cash flow from your investments. Now you want the distributions. You take distributions on a regular basis. Some are monthly, some are quarterly, but yeah, it's regular.
Yeah, no, that's great. We don't do that, but essentially what we do is we'll find the buildings that are empty, right? They don't have anybody in them, and then what we're really focused on is finding tenants who are accredited tenants. Maybe it's a DSO, maybe it's in the urgent care, whatever. We put them in the building, and it like that increase. Just having them as soon as they sign the lease, bam, that value is increased like crazy. So people who want to invest, you put the money in up front. You get the leverage from the bank as much as possible. Usually they're giving you 80, 75%,
Right.
but it's low interest right now. And then you can decide like, do I refinance this property, get all my money back and continue making a little bit of cash flow? Do I hold the money I have in there and make more cash flow? Or do we just sell it and get an immediate return, which can be, substantial, right? Depending on the tenant and the building and stuff like that. But there's a lot of different ways that you can slice it. So, anybody who wants to get in touch with you, they want to find out more about the fund, stuff like that. What's the best way to get in touch?
Best place is just the website, Freedom Founders with an S, freedomfounders.com. I also, like you, I've got a podcast, which is the Dentist Freedom Blueprint podcast, which I'd like to reciprocate and have you on because you could bring some valuable information to us. So we're going to do that.
Yeah, we'll absolutely do that. Well, all right. You got it. I'll drop that in the show notes. And I look forward to just getting to know you more, keeping the dialogue going, and hopping on your podcast soon.
Be awesome. Thanks for the time today. It was really fun to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.